Hello, everyone. We are the PSEG Institute for Sustainability Studies Green Team, serving the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation. And our Green Team consists of myself, Faith Guevara, and I am a nutrition and food science major at Montclair State University.
And I'm Daniel Ivanov, a biochemistry major out of NJIT.
I'm Elizabeth Nemec, a chemical engineering major at Rutgers University.
My name is Hadar Pepperstone. I'm an environmental science student at SUNY Plattsburgh.
I am Anthony Ruiz, an environmental planning and landscape architecture student at Rutgers University.
For this project, we focus our research on organic waste reduction, and organic waste refers to yard waste and food waste. And through our research, we found that organic waste, specifically food waste, is a huge issue because it makes up 22% of New Jersey's landfill. And it also contributes to the release of methane within the atmosphere. Although by diverting the food waste from these landfills, it can be used to produce other things such as energy and fertilizer. And a little bit about Northern New Jersey Community Foundation is that they were founded in 1998, and they have a variety of projects which encourage collaboration within the community, which goes back to their motto, what can we do together that we can't do alone? And for our project, we chose 3 municipalities within Bergen County to focus on, which include Ridgewood, Glen Rock, and Fairlawn. And we included a map of where each municipality is located within the county. The projects that we worked on include developing a closed-loop food system model, analyzing organic waste generated by each municipality, evaluating economics of proposed systems, and then proposed food waste reduction strategies.
As you can see here, the first thing we did was to develop a conceptual closed-loop food system model. Starting in the top right with education, we found this to be really essential to the success of the program. Moving on to sourcing, which is where the food waste comes from, particularly homes and businesses. The food waste then needs to be collected either through a drop-off location or a pickup service like standard trash. It is then taken to where it's going to be processed either at a facility like a composting facility or an anaerobic digester. Then the products from that process, such as compost, can be used in residential locations or community gardens and green spaces. And in the case that that compost is used to grow more food, that food can go back to the sources, closing the loop.
We began our research by analyzing the municipal solid waste generated per municipality by looking at the past 5 years and calculating an average. Now, using this average, we used the NJDEP's 22% of landfill waste as food waste and applied it to this average to then calculate a rough estimate of how much food waste is actually being generated per municipality.
We also looked into current policy within the state, such as a recent bill that will be coming into effect in October of 2021 that says that any food waste generator of 52 tons or more must try to divert the food waste from a landfill if a recycling facility is available within 25 miles. New Jersey also put a 50% food waste reduction goal by 2030 that started in 2017. And any food waste that is recycled within New Jersey has to be done so at a Class C facility that is permitted to accept food waste. Currently, there's only 4 of those in New Jersey, and only 1 of those is operational. We proposed some changes, such as local incentives for business partners that fit into the closed loop system, such as, for example, a vertical garden, and long-term state and county planning. We got that idea because in 2012, Vermont made Act 148, which set an 8-year timeline that allowed them to reach zero food waste by 2020. We think that that would be very beneficial for either the state or for Bergen County to implement.
As mentioned previously, we found education to be really essential to the success of the program since this system relies on residents. So we need to inform residents about their impact that they have personally regarding food waste and then provide them with tools to change their behavior. Those tools, we recommend multiple methods of outreach, including workshops, some of which already exist, and expanding those to include topics like how to reduce food waste at home, as well as outreach materials to be published, such as the flyers you see to the right. Ultimately, the goal of education is to see a reduction in residential food waste. And since we're talking about residential food waste, you need to create an informed and engaged public through education.
We also looked into a different pricing model for any residential waste removal. So we're talking about all waste here. Currently, the 3 municipalities, they charge a tax for all residents, and residents don't really see how much of that tax is going into waste reduction and waste removal. So pay-as-you-throw instead, or unit-based pricing, It treats waste as a utility in the same way that you pay for your water or gas based off how much you use. So in the same way that you might put a solar panel on your roof to reduce your electric cost, or I'm not allowed to touch my thermostat at home because then we'll have too much of a gas bill. Pay-as-you-throw encourages residents directly to reduce their waste. From different studies that we've looked into, a minimum reduction is seen of 20 to 30% without any recycling and composting within the municipalities. And once municipalities implement recycling and composting, there's an average of 44% waste reduction. The municipalities, if we just go back one slide, the municipalities that we talked to have been worried about illegal dumping and a lack of compliance, but different case studies and different studies have shown that that's rarely ever happens as soon as proper ordinances are in place. We also looked into the tipping fees, so that if a 20 or 44% reduction is implemented, and thus the municipalities don't have to pay for that much waste to be removed, there's different savings that can be realized within the municipalities, and because the pay-as-you-throw system, that savings would be realized by the residents themselves. And for Fair Lawn, for example, the largest municipality, they would see up to $1.5 million in savings.
Composting can be relatively simple to implement, and a pay-as-you-throw system would incentivize backyard composting. This method diverts food waste destined for landfills with something as simple as a separate bin to hold any vegetable or fruit scraps. These scraps would then become compost, electricity, or animal feed. However, in order to properly produce electricity, a larger scale municipal composter will be needed. We met with Tidy Planet and discussed the rocket composters. The first smaller system is able to process 1 ton per day of food waste with a 5.4-year payback period, whereas the larger system is able to process 3 tons per day of food waste with a 3.1-year payback period. Now, these systems have minimal operating costs, with labor needing at least 2 to 3 hours, and these systems are also self-sustaining and relatively small, where they could easily be implemented into an existing recycling facility. Now, these municipalities can have 1 unit or potentially expand their systems to implement more composters or potentially an anaerobic digester. Anaerobic digestion breaks down organic materials using microorganisms. Now, these results into biogas, which is the natural gas being released from the food waste, gray water, the moisture being separated from the solids, and digestates being the leftover dried solid. And each of these materials could be used as an energy source. We met with Bioenergy Devco, the producer of an anaerobic digester, and discussed their system. This system is much larger and requires 15 to 20 workers needed with a minimum of 5 acres. However, it can process much more food tons with 10,000 tons per year. Anaerobic digestion is recommended as a long-term county solution due to its size and stature compared to a municipal composter, but as well as collaboration required between municipalities in order to pull together their resources and reduce their food waste while producing a renewable energy source.
So there are also community components that contribute to the overall system, as well as the collaboration of towns and community members. Farmers markets, vertical farms, and community gardens can allow for possible food waste reduction by localizing food growth and distribution, as well as reducing transportation costs and requirements. These systems also provide a location for certain aspects of education, such as small workshops or handing out informational brochures. Community gardens can provide a place for compost, assuming that a larger scale composting system was established. And then in the case that it wasn't, backyard composting can be an alternative for residents to utilize their own food waste. Each of these components are recommendations for initial action or expansion in the case that municipalities already have some, so that they can approach their environmental goals. We developed a timeline for the municipalities to follow that shows the big picture, and we broke it down into the short-term, midterm, and long-term components. Short-term includes education and municipal action, such as the pay-as-you-throw system or community gardens. Next would be the collection and distribution systems, which take a bit longer to implement, but are based off of those initial municipal actions. And then long-term would consist of large-scale systems, such as a countywide facility that requires a lot more collaboration, and that would be like the composter or anaerobic digester. Future recommendations include focusing on reducing waste and education to allow for more immediate action and results. Proposing a system efficiently is very important to begin the implementation, especially for a complex system, so that it can be installed as quickly as possible. And then further research on a county-wide facility is important to eventually plan for collaboration on a larger scale.
So we talked about a number of things this morning, things we were able to look into over the summer. First was the impact of food waste, especially the environmental impact and how significant that is. We also looked at our closed loop system that we developed and how that can be integrated into existing pieces and towns. We analyzed the food waste and waste of these towns of Glenrock, Ridgewood, and Fairlawn, and showed that especially on the scale of a town with thousands of people, the impact of food waste becomes really significant. We introduced the pay-as-you-throw system, which can be implemented in cities relatively simply and have a really significant impact on waste reduction. The importance of education and collaboration cannot be underscored enough, and it also goes back to the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation central question of what can we do together that we can't do alone. And finally, we looked at steps that can be taken towards larger scale achievements, such as community composters and anaerobic digesters.
Finally, we'd like to thank the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation, as well as the various green committees and DPWs of the municipalities we worked with, and the Montclair State University PSEG ISS green teams. And finally, we'd like to thank our funders.